Welcome to the Fullcaster Podcast, episode 19. Our guest today is one of the best drivers in the business and one with an immense amount of racing experience, none other than Billy Cleavelin. Going straight into our current events here so we can get into the good stuff with Billy. It's actually our 20th episode that we're recording. It's episode 19, but obviously we did start with a 0, and we just eclipsed 4,500 downloads, which is blowing my mind right
People
now.
have nothing better to do, I guess.
I actually think that we might get past 5,000 this season. I mean, we should have one more episode after this, but that'll be the last one. We're going to cap it at 20.
But yeah, I think between just that, the number tracker that we have, the information, we can see the numbers going up, but also the guests we've been getting.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we got Billy Cleavelin this time. We're going to be in like 17,000 after this one episode right here. But yeah, it's been nuts.
No, it's been cool, and there's been a lot more engagement out here in the paddock. Even people we don't know hitting us up saying they're enjoying it. But to add on to that really quick, it was cool because we got the koozies made and we're handing that out to all the previous guests we had. And I gave it to Kyle Hayner a few weeks ago, and he's all stoked about it. He goes, "Dude, after my episode, I had 5 guys come up to me. I have no idea who they are. Say they like the episode."
Oh, that's awesome.
So now it's word's getting around, and it's cool hearing that people are enjoying it so much.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously having a blast doing it.
Awesome,
it's been so cool just to hear the origin stories and talk to people and just different eras, different ways of thinking, different stories. And everybody's a little bit different. But as we put a cap on this season, we're gonna try to do this for as long as we can, and have season after season every year. And we're planning on for season 2, again, doing them every other week. But we're going to do a bunch of recordings in the off season here, the actual racing season. But let us know on social media and whatnot what you guys think of the show. What platform do you listen on, and
any guests you want to hear?
Yeah, any guests that you want to hear, and from this year, what's your favorite episode? What was your favorite thing, and whatever, and how can we make this thing a little bit better? Obviously, we don't get into the provocative stuff and whatnot. It's all about fun and origin stories and stuff like that.
Right.
But anyway, let us know what you guys think. And
the 2 I know people have heard about or have been mentioning, and you obviously know about. First one was Terry Nash.
Right.
His episode actually comes out tomorrow.
Right. We're recording this on October 5th, and his comes out on the 6th. That's right.
His comes out tomorrow, but then the other one we've keep hearing about, we know we got to get is Troy Adams.
Oh, yeah.
So, at some point in the off season, we'll get him for season 2 and hear about all the drivers that came through his track.
Yeah, and all the stuff that he's been able to do. Never mind what he's doing now with coaching and stuff like that. So, lots of stuff to cover in the off season for season 2 of this thing. Let us know what you guys think. But current season, we just had the Tri-C finale, and was also our final event with CSK Racing. We've been talking about it on the podcast a few different times. It was a really cool way to finish out 4 years for us. We were able to sweep both podiums, 206 Senior and 206 Masters.
Yeah.
Kudos to Pietro Moro with the championship.
Double championships.
Both.
Yeah.
Pretty stout. It was he had things wrapped up after Saturday in Masters, but Sunday came down to the wire, and Sam Hunt actually finished his second in the championship. I want to say like 5 points or something.
Barely out next in Seth Willits. Yeah.
It was really, really close. So
it was cool. I was talking. I'm in tech, and Pietro's kind of cooling off. He's getting his tools about to tear down his motor too. And we finally get through tech, and we're walking away. I'm like, dude, the only other guy close to Aaron, maybe capable of doing double championships, would have been Mike. Referring to you. I'm like, obviously the first year was the shitty scenario with the classes and whatnot, the class split. But it was funny. I told him that he kind of stops for a second and thinks, he's like, holy crap, But no, he definitely earned both of them.
That's nice of you to say.
Yeah, I try to do.
Yeah, you slipped, didn't you? Didn't mean it.
Yeah.
But no, it's he actually had a phenomenal year,
Yeah.
And it was actually what was really neat too is it was a lot like what we had seen before. Remember TJ Blackledge finished second in the first year. Second year of the Spec Championship.
Yeah.
Mark Connell won that one, but TJ had 5 out of 8 races won.
Mm-hmm.
Sam had 4 out of 7. It was just the consistency was on the other end of the board, and then you have Seth Willits, last year's champion senior, kills everybody in qualifying, but just bad luck after that. So it was interesting to have different guys at different levels, and Alex Bermudez in Masters being right there, and Lucas Jimmy Doc being right in the game again, last year's champ for Masters. So Yeah, it was a cool year to see new people at the sharp end, and still see the existing or the former champs right there with them as well. So it was good to put it all kind of in perspective. The last 4 years, it was cool for us to kind of be ending on a high note.
Yeah, and the other cool part too. I mean, Saturday was pretty rough for the team because there was so much bent shit under one tent, and it was all between teammates, right? But I mean, I think everyone came back on Sunday with kind of a clear head. Yeah. And a little bit more relaxed, especially because Masters is already wrapped up. So half the tent isn't really...
Yeah, it changed it a little bit. The dynamic did.
For sure, but I think...
Plus, we got a chance to hang out at Saturday night and have a few cocktails.
The Josie juice helped out for sure. But
relax a little bit. That was good.
But I think everyone kind of understood that Sunday was the final day to kind of enjoy it too. So being under the tent.
Yeah, and actually... we had Mark Connell out there, and he wasn't feeling fantastic on Sunday, so he ended up parking a little bit early. It's been a lot of fun working with Mark, making the transition from 206 to KA.
Well, and to go back a little bit further, sport karting to KA.
No, yeah,
so he's
karting all the way up. Yeah,
moved up the ladder quite a bit.
Super Series Masters champion, Ironman winner of races and stuff like that, and then again 206 Masters spec 206 champion before moving on up. And it's been a lot of fun to work with him, and I actually got a chance to drive his kart in the second heat and the main.
Yeah.
Second heat, I thought things were going pretty damn good. We got the okay to run about 2 minutes before the session, so we didn't have any time to really set things up. So I just jumped in and went. And usually I'm pretty close to weight with Mark.
But you've been burning the calories pretty good lately.
I was working pretty hard on Saturday, I guess, and I ended up going from last to sixth and had fast lap. But I was 5 pounds light.
The best part about that was I think back to the night before they had the In-N-Out truck.
Yeah. I had 3.
Yeah, and you were still light.
Yeah, what the hell? They're not putting what I thought they did in the double-doubles. Yeah. Anyway, it was really good to get back in the seat. The main didn't go my way. I was going to the front, and then, I had a little bit of contact with Steve Dzinski, knocked my chain off. But I thought we had a shot at the podium for that one. Yeah. It was just good to be back in the seat. First time for me since the opener, Pro Kart opener, Buttonwillow.
Well, I was just saying, that must have been pretty cool. I know the last thing you wanted to do was go drive and leave me having to deal with some of the 206 guys.
Yeah. But and again, I appreciate you giving me the okay.
No, for seriously. Sure. But I thought about it. I'm like, well, shit, dude, your whole year got shit canned because of reopening and all this other kind of stuff. So I'm like, and Mark's basically twisting your arm to try to go drive. Yeah. But I'm like, no, the chance, go take it because SuperNats just got shit canned.
Yeah, exactly.
And who knows
the whole
about
point
Rio.
was to run Pro Kart, be ready to go in both KA Masters and X30 Masters, and run Rock the Rio and run SuperNats. And with SuperNats out, and Rio is, we'll see. I mean, Reg's supposed to open today, but I haven't seen a whole lot of information. I'm not super stoked about how it's looking, but anyways,
we'll be at Alan Rudolph next week.
Louise.
Man.
We'll see. It was good to get back in the seat, and I'm looking forward to 2021. We actually get some more racing. Speaking of more racing, speaking of big events, a guy who's actually found repeat success at those kind of marquee events is our guest today, and I think we've rambled on enough about our little program. Let's go ahead and bring on one of the myths, the legends, if you will, in the sport, Billy Cleavelin. Billy Cleavelin, thanks for coming out here, and we're here in the afternoon on a Monday, and you took some time off work and whatnot, and we appreciate you coming out here and hanging out with us.
I appreciate it. It's go-karts. Guys talking about karting and all the stories and the battles, and the fun, and
hopefully we'll get some of those
highs and lows.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some of that right now. And I say you took some time off work, and we can just jump right into that. What is it that you do? What's the 9 to 5? What pays the bills?
Well, I've been a masonry contractor for 37 years.
Wow.
I've been in the trade for probably 41. It was a summer job helping an Austrian bricklayer, and I liked it so much that I stuck with it. Went into the union, got my contractor's license in 1983. I was 25, something like that, and never turned back.
Wow.
And the fact that I could do what I wanted to do, whether it was take off early, go karting, or back at that time I was involved in snow ski racing.
Okay.
So it's been real good. It's hard work, but it keeps me in shape. And I enjoy it.
Did you just stumble across it that first summer, or?
Yeah. It was just, I had some buddies that were doing construction, and it was more like, you shouldn't be doing this, but you're doing it. So I helped them, and I enjoyed it. You were outside. Back then, you could wear shorts. You didn't have to wear your shirt. You know, it was residential stuff, and I enjoyed it. You were working with your hands, and I liked the hours. It was 6 to 2:30 back then. And so from there, I went to a material supply that all the contractors came in, and I asked them, you know, if anybody was looking for a job, you know, or offering work. And I got hooked up with this Austrian guy, and he was brutal. But he was one of the best craftsmen still to this day. And so all the years that I worked for him, I figured I was never learning anything. But I learned so much from him that still every day, you know, the techniques that I learned from him apply.
Cool.
Then went into the union because I, you know, wanted something bigger, wanted to learn more. And the union was really good for fine-tuning everything and seeing what it took to work on commercial jobs and, you know, USC, UCLA, big stuff, schools, hospitals, completely different techniques than just regular light commercial. And I decided to, it was 82, there was like a recession. So there wasn't that much work. And so I decided that I wanted to get my contractor's license. It was a big advertising campaign back then on the TV. So I signed up for it, paid my money, and studied, and, you know, and went through all of the courses and everything. And the trade part was relatively easy, but the law part was even easier because my parents were in escrow, and the law part was about lien laws and all of that. So, you know, I kind of had a little edge there. And
Gotcha.
the parents, excuse me, the parents quizzed me, and so I was able to pass it the first time out. And, you know, here I am years
Nice.
later.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you basically, you go from the recession thing happens, and you're like, you don't have the work gig with the union, so you decide you're going to do your own deal. Was it always kind of part of the plan? You were always planning on doing your own business or anything like that?
There was no plan. You know,
Taking it as it
yeah,
comes.
it was just an idea. During the union time, I started doing little homeowner jobs. You know, brick planter here, a little wall here, concrete slab, and it just took off. You know, and pretty soon I was so busy with my own little jobs that, you know, when the union called me back, I looked at, well, I can go make this money on here, or I can go back and work for wages. I'll call you when I'm done, you know.
Yeah.
And so it evolved from there.
And you got into that deal pretty much right out of high school?
Right out of high school.
Yeah.
You know, back then you had three choices. You learned a trade, you went into the service, or you went to college. And so I didn't want to go to college. My attention span wasn't really focused for that. And, you know, it was after Vietnam, 4 or 5 years later after Vietnam. So I didn't want to be in the service. And so why not?
Yeah.
You know, work outside. When it rains during the winter, you can go skiing, you know. And
See, I'm from the Northwest, so everybody's working outside, whether it's raining or not. Anyway, you know,
Right.
like down here, if it rains and whatnot, I don't see a lot of construction stuff like that, right? Don't they shut things down for the most part?
yeah, it just depends on the phase of it.
Okay.
You know, we'll stay on the job site because it's SoCal. The storms come in and they come out. You know, they're gone.
Right.
So if we can hang out for an hour and the rain stops, we'll continue working. But if it's going to be one of those days where it rains all day, then you don't go out. The biggest thing is the mud.
Oh, right.
You know, you don't want guys carrying heavy planks, scaffolding, or block walking in the mud because you slip, hurt your back.
Yeah. Apparently, everybody in the Northwest is immune to that. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's because they have no choice up there.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
it rains so much. Where here, it doesn't rain that much, and it's kind of a way to get a day off.
Right.
You
There
know.
you go. There you go. Going back to, so we were talking about high school, and then you get into that, and this ends up being what you do. Were you racing at the same time? You said one of the cool things was you could maybe do a little bit of karting and whatnot. So did you race all the way through there, or how'd you get into karting in the first place?
Okay, so I got into karting out of quarter midgets.
Oh, cool.
So quarter midgets came about when I was 9 or 10. My neighbor had a TQ midget. So he used to take me to all the midget races, and that's how I was introduced to midget racing. Well, when I found out about a quarter midget, hey, that's right up my alley.
Right.
So I did a lot of work, and my parents chipped in, I chipped in, and we found a quarter midget for $125.
Wow.
Turnkey, push start it, go.
And what year is this?
So this is late 1969.
And what does a quarter midget look like then? I've seen them now. I kind of know what they look like now. Are they really a scaled down?
They're scaled down. Back then they had a Continental engine in it. It was a same kind of probably case or engine block like a Honda is now.
Okay.
And it had a gear reduction, and the Continental engine was a Army surplus motor. And
oh, wow.
So when quarter midget started, the story goes that these things were selling for like $35. And then you put an engine in front of a guy that's racing, and all kinds of things start happening.
Yeah.
So they built aftermarket gear reductions, and then they took off the float bolt carburetor and put a Del Orto on there. Pretty soon you went from stock to A gas to double A gas, and then I think there was an open class where it ran on alcohol, and those things were beast, because it was just all torque.
Nowadays, I know that the quarter midgets, you're pretty much done at like 12 or 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
Is it that way back then too?
Yeah, it was basically the same way, because then there was half midgets or micros.
Oh.
And that was, I think, a motorcycle engine at that time, and that was kind of in between. If you grew out of the quarter midget, you could get into the half midget or micro, and I don't think that they let anybody get in the TQs until they were 18. So the TQ midgets were Hondas. It was Chevy 2 engines. Then it became Volkswagens.
Wow.
And then there was the full size midget. But most of those guys were in there. There was the few that were teenagers, but most of them were in their mid-20s,
really?
Early 30s, 40s, and then there was the full-size midget, and then the sprint car.
Right.
No wings back then.
Right.
When I started, they were still roll bars, and then so the quarter midgets lasted about a year.
Oh.
Then the go-karts.
Now, where were you doing the quarter midgets?
Quarter midgets, there was a track out by Chino Airport.
Okay.
There was a dirt track there, and then there was a asphalt concrete track in Pomona. It was kind of high banked, and that was off of State Street. So those were the two tracks that I got to go to.
A couple different disciplines there with the dirt and the pavement. Did you prefer one or the other?
I only did Chino once.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and when I went there, it was dry, so it would have been like going out to Paris track. You weren't sliding.
Yeah.
You weren't sliding. The Paris infield had dirt go-karts, and it would just get really dry and get everybody to be running slicks.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Pomona, what I remember, it was fast. I mean, I think we were going around there at that time 6 seconds.
Man.
For a 20th of a mile banked oval. I mean, you go out and you're hanging out. You're hanging out the side of the car, your elbows outside, and you just have a half steering wheel, not like a butterfly, like a go-kart.
Yeah.
And you once your tires got heated, and it took about 5 laps, because most of the time they were recaps, I think.
Okay.
There wasn't, any golden tire until the Goodyear Blue Streak came out. They were Carlisle, and the inside tire was a bearing, the left rear, and then the outside tire was live.
Oh.
And
Wow.
back then they hadn't changed the front, so you had the same kind of tires. So it definitely had a push.
You throttle steer a little bit there?
Yeah, yeah. You would just go in, and pretty soon it would hook up. You know, and you're a little kid. You don't know what you're doing. You're just
Right.
hanging on, and you don't want to come in. You know, they're out there waving, and you still got gas in that tank.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in.
Checkered flag my ass,
Yeah.
man. Let's go.
Yeah, and then you get in there and you get your butt chewed. Hey, when I give you that one finger, you got to come in. Well, I thought I was the fastest.
Right. Yeah.
You only but use that one though so many times.
Yeah.
So how did you end up finding out or doing the kart gig?
So the karting came across a magazine first. I found a magazine at a quarter midget track, and it was a Karter News, and that was put out by
IKF.
IKF.
Yeah.
So that magazine didn't leave my hands forever. It was
Wow.
just, it had everything in there. So then I found out, I read in the magazine, K&P Karting, K&P Manufacturing, 330 South Irwindale Avenue in Azusa, California.
You been there before?
Oh, I've been there. You know, so as a kid, I got on my bike, you know, my parents were at work, and I rode up there.
Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Covina.
Okay.
I was born in Pasadena, lived in Arcadia, Monrovia, and then we moved to Covina.
Mm-hmm.
So Covina was from the time I was 7 until I was 19.
Okay.
And so I rode my bike out there, and there it was, you know, a go-kart manufacturing place. They had go-karts inside there.
Just like in the magazine.
Exactly like, hey, that guy's in the magazine. This is
Yeah.
John Pearson, right? And,
Oh, man.
And so, you know, I just started going there and checking it all out, and I wanted to sell my quarter midget. So my cousin, who lived in Duarte, had a neighbor that wanted a quarter midget. So my stepfather said, don't sell it for what you bought it. Sell it for $50 more. So I sold it, and I got $175. So the cart I wanted to buy was a used cart at K&P, and it was a dark cart. It was blue. It had a moon tank on the back seat, and it had these Azusa wheels, and it had Goodyear blue streaks, and that was the karting tire at that time. And it had a McCullough 91 with a Horseman dry clutch, a gem header, and there was no such thing as a can pipe back then. You know, so when I tell people I'm deaf in one ear and can't hear out the other, it was a lot of fun back then, you know.
Yeah.
So I got the cart. My grandfather brought it home, and the first thing I did was ride it in the street, you know, and I didn't get to go out to kart tracks because I really didn't know of any. I didn't realize that just another half mile up the road north of K&P was the Azusa Kartway.
Oh, wow.
But when I got my next couple magazines, because they had magazines at K&P there, I brought them home. I found out there was a kart track there. So that's when my grandfather started taking me to the track.
Gotcha.
And I didn't know anybody, you know. I had a small box of wrenches, a 1-gallon gas can. You know, I
and
didn't.
you're what, 10? 11?
Now I'm probably 11, 12.
Okay.
You know, my grandfather didn't want to sit there and listen to go-karts all the day. He was a horse racing fan. You know, Santa Anita's just 5 miles down the road.
Here
What's-
you go,
Place the
little
bets.
little
Yeah.
William.
You just let everybody know that I spent the day with you, and you don't get into trouble and
Yeah.
don't get hurt, you know. Hey, I'm happy. No lunch,
Yeah.
1 gallon of gas at a go-kart track, and I would just make it out to the track, and I would just putt around, and guys would be flying by me, you know. And so then the older guys started cluing me in on the protocol, getting on the track and getting off, and oiling your chain and all that. And remarkably, that go-kart stood up. I didn't blow any chains. I didn't bend anything, you know, because I wasn't really pushing it. It was ran rich all the time, Blenzol and regular pump gas.
I love the smell of
Making it
Blenzol.
last, yeah.
Making it last. So that I did that a couple times, and then there was an enduro race that was listed in the Karter News that was at Pomona Fairgrounds. So where I lived in Covina, I figured, maybe it'll take me an hour to get there on my bike. and I had a 10-speed at that time. So I rode out to Pomona Fairgrounds, and there it was, an enduro kart race with all these laid-down karts, single, double engine, hippies, rednecks, all kinds of people. It was great, and I didn't know anything, but I was in heaven. And I noticed these two kids that I had read in the magazine, and those two kids were Kyle and Tony Atkins, and Bill Atkins was their dad. So I sat back and watched them during the day, and then Bill came over and says, "Hey, you want to just hang out in our pits?" And he introduced me to the boys, and the boys are looking at me like, who's this kid? But from there, they gave me a ride home that day and picked me up the next morning for the Sunday event. And from there, now I made my connection into karting. And so I started hanging out with those guys for the next couple years. And they took me to all the local races, whether it was Adams, Oxnard, the Oildale track up in Bakersfield, the enduro tracks of Ontario Motor Speedway, Pomona Fairgrounds, Orange County, Riverside. These were, and they were having go-kart races. So I learned from those guys how everything worked.
Were you wrenching for them or kind of apprentice style?
Yeah, kind of. First I was just helping them because there wasn't kart stands back in the day. They'd ride it in. They'd stick a block underneath the rear crossbar so you could spin it and oil the chain. Mm-hmm. And from there, it graduated to the 55-gallon barrel because you'd have to get up there to work on the clutch and all that and adjust everything. And during that time, I don't think I ever saw a kart stand, mostly 55-gallon barrels.
Yeah.
And during that time, the oil clutch was evolving. There was the Atkins oiler, which was taking a dry clutch, drilling holes all the way around it, machining an aluminum cover with a gasket, and it had a little bearing on the inside. They made a different nut so that the bearing ran on that nut, and now it had oil in the clutch. So now it slipped, and now it changed everything. And then the Burrises created the Burco clutch, and then there was the Hartmans who created the Hartman clutch. And so,
sounds like a lot of the early development wasn't so much on the engine side as it was the clutches.
Clutch and pipes.
Putting the power down.
Yeah, getting the power. I mean, they were building engines. There were the stock classes were McCullough. There would be a light and heavy. And then there would be the open classes, and they would be modified, like Reed Open Light, Reed Open Heavy. Then there was the Italian engines, the Comets, which today is an IAME. And that was the real stuff.
And that's in the 70s?
That was in the 70s. And so they had the Comet K88. They had the B-Bomb, which was a 135. And these classes, there were the stock appearing, which was an open engine. This is a Comet engine. Was an open engine, but it ran on gas on Saturday, and on Sunday, you'd put an alcohol carburetor on it and run it in open light.
Oh, wow.
And so there were the light and heavy classes of those, and then there was B Limited, which is a single 135 engine, and it was open, ran on alcohol, and that thing was just a monster.
Yeah, I bet.
Jeez. That reminds me of, I'm trying to remember the year of these karts, but I remember Pat Sakers once, so when I was racing as a kid, mid-90s, but someone brought a vintage kart out. I remember it was pretty. It was all blue. I had 4 engines on the back, and they're all chromed out and all sorts of kind of stuff. And that
only one was attached; the others were spares.
No,
they're all there.
No,
yeah.
they
hauled
were
ass, and
they
the
were
tires
probably
are only about 3-4 inches wide on this thing.
Man.
It was probably a McCullough 101.
Yeah,
and had a bigger carburetor on it, ran on alcohol. Alcohol was a big thing back then.
we ran. I was on Flathead Briggs. We did alcohol in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then there was the dual engine classes. There was B Open, which you had 2 K88s on gas, and then there was C Open, 2 135s on alcohol.
Jeez.
And these are all on the sprint tracks, or are these?
This was sprint and enduro.
Wow.
and it was just amazing to watch these guys drive them. You know, the dual engine classes were just unbelievable.
I couldn't believe how fast that 4-engine thing was. And there was another 2-engine one. I mean, they're fast.
Yeah.
And it's not like the chassis is working a bunch. It's not like there's a lot of grip to this thing. And they're sideways, leaning, all kinds of crazy shit.
Oh, they would just the twins would, back then it was 2-piece wheels with a tire tube. There was no tubeless. Tubeless didn't come till later on when they figured out, I think it was Van K and probably Henline. They spun the wheels and then put an O-ring in there. And that's when the tubeless started. But back then those dual engine karts, if they got too much grip with the tire tube, it'd just spin it, rip the valve stem right out.
Man.
And they had, Hurst Earhart was the brakes, and they were just little 1/8-inch thin little discs, you know. And those things must have got so hot, and probably $50 was the brake puck, the size. And those guys would, you know, everything was 3 heats, 10 laps, green, white checker qualifying, standing on the side with 8 or 9 people with stopwatches and a clipboard. None of the stuff that we have now, you know, and probably 200 entries.
Wow.
And they would make this, you know, the event would go through, and it was a lot of fun.
Two questions. What drew you? I'll ask this one. I'll ask the next one I was thinking of. But when you said you like, hey, I wanted to sell my quarter midget and get into karts. What was it about the karting that drew you? Was it turning both directions or different tracks?
It was definitely the road course.
Okay.
It was definitely a road course. You know, back then all we had was wide world of sports. Mm-hmm. So every once in a while you get a Formula One race, but most of it was IndyCar. And just the road course seemed like it was harder to do. And ovals had its own technique. Road courses had its own technique, but it was a lot more fun, you know. And so
that's what drew you over to that side.
Yeah, that and the technology at that time, you know, and then the heroes at that time, you know, whether it be the Atkins brothers or the Toll brothers, Howard Comby, you know, he was up and coming then. There was all the enduro guys, Steve Lansing, Daryl Domes, Mike Culver, you know, I could go on and on and on. And those were the innovators. Those were the racers. And the racing back then, it was tough. Lynn Haddock was one of the top guys even way back then. And, I mean, those guys put on a race. And they didn't race in the rain back then. You know, the rain didn't come.
Is it 'cause all the tires are slicks? Are they slicks back then? And
everything was Goodyear Blue Streaks. Then Bridgestones came out. They came out when I came back. I did the 70s stuff was just for about 3-4 years.
And so that's when you're a munchkin at that point. You're a teenager.
Yeah,
right in there.
Yeah, up till I was 15 and a half, I was involved in karting. Then
were you racing as well?
No, I wasn't racing as much, but I was heavily involved wrenching with the Atkins by the end of that era.
How much did you feel like you learned from them? I mean,
I learned a lot about wrenches. I learned a lot about doing clutches, building wheels. Everything was a different technique.
Right.
They didn't change axles back then. They didn't have the spindles like they have now. Everything was pretty basic. There were still metal seats. The fiberglass seat was just coming in as I was stopping. But I learned a lot just about mechanics, which helped a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And I learned how expensive it was.
Right.
You know, and what it took. And so when I stopped not because I couldn't do it anymore. It's because my transportation, my grandfather had passed away. So my way to the track had stopped.
Oh, see, that was the other question I was going to ask you, and that segues right into is we're talking about you riding your bike to the track or being driven by the Atkins and whatnot. your parents, are they not involved in the racing thing? And they're
My parents were cocktails and clubhouse and golfing.
okay.
And racing was not on the menu.
Well, it makes sense. You said your grandpa was horse racing, so I guess it kind of
they were just a little bit. That just wasn't their their thing. And I mean, my mom, who used to give me money to go with my neighbor to the midget races, she could have cared less as long as I was okay. But
that's what little Billy likes, and that's it.
Yeah.
See ya.
I had 4 sisters and myself, right? Okay. So there's one gone. Now I just got to deal with these 4 girls. That's what
and they might all want to do the same shit.
Yeah,
so perfect.
Can you take your sisters? No.
Were you the youngest, or where were you at?
Second oldest.
Okay.
So after that, it came to an immediate halt, and so I was devastated. Not only losing my grandfather, but I was also selfish and devastated that I couldn't go karting anymore. I just didn't have a way to the track. So I decided to get out of it, and probably 6 months later, I learned how to snow ski. And so that stopped and that started. And I did that for 7 years loyally.
Wow. Did it transfer over? I mean, I've actually talked to other people about how skiing and vision and then racing and vision kind of play together, but
I mean, the one thing I would definitely say is that you have to look ahead, the depth perception. You have to be able to read. When you're out on the track, you're reading the track. You're up on the snow's changing constantly, you have to read it. So there were things that transferred over as far as being aware. Racing, you have to really be paying attention. Not only what you're doing, but what other guys are doing, and trying to anticipate what's going to happen. Practice days are a little sketchier than race days, because there's people out there and they're just trying to learn the craft, and they're not up to speed. They don't have the confidence, and you're out there and you're trying to lay down a lap, and so it's a lot of awareness going on, and you have to kind of just take a step back, take deep breath, drive by them so that they don't crash and guys don't hook up. But there is, skiing was a lot of fun. How
did you discover that? Was it from school, or
a friend of mine? He said, "Hey, come on up. We're going to Baldy." So Baldy was like a 25-minute drive. And back in the 70s, we didn't have this global warming awareness like we have now. And we would get some snow. Baldy they'd get 5-foot dumps. It seemed like all the time. So we'd go up there, and, I learned the snow plow, and then I, ate a lot of snow, but I figured it out. It's like racing, it's athletics. So you work on it, you work on your technique. So after a couple of years, I started doing slalom, and then I joined Far West Ski Association, and I just started racing. I'd watch guys, and then I'd go down and do it, and I'd just try to mimic what they were doing. And then I got some coaching from some guys, and I just loved it, because it was just you and the skis. There was no chain oil, there was no tire pressure, but there was ski wax, ski length, binding tension, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it until it got too popular. And, SoCal popular, it went from skiing right on the lift in the early 70s to by the 80s, it was an hour and a half lift line.
Oh, wow.
Man.
And so being impatient, that wasn't working for me. And then a high school friend of mine by the name of John Marconi got a go-kart. And he called me up and he says, "Hey, I need you to come to the track with me. Show me how this works." No, I don't want to do that. and I didn't want to do that. It's kind of like somebody that went sober.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the same.
You felt like you knew, if I go back.
Yeah. If I want go-karting, I'm going to start racing again.
Yeah.
So he bugged me for, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, and finally I gave in. And I went out to the track, and I went over everything. I still remembered from the days of my karting, you know.
What track did you go to?
We went to Adams.
Adams, yeah.
Yeah. And so we went out there, and he had bought a brand new Margay, and it had a Yamaha engine on it, and he bought it from Yamaha of America. So Dick Hansen was owned that kart shop, and so I had a nice kart, all brand new. Everything was ready to go, and so we got him going. He's out on the kart track, and I'd watch him, you know, and he'd want to stay out there for 10, 15, 20. No. Let's just go do 5 laps at a time, get everything set, you know, set the air pressure, recheck this. And so the end of the day, he says, you want to drive it? Okay.
I'm here, aren't I?
Yeah.
You already had your helmet and suit on.
No, I didn't have, you know, when I sold everything, I got rid of everything.
Right.
So
had you not, so when you sold it and you said you did the skiing thing for 7 years, right? I think you said 7 years.
Yeah,
right?
it was 7-8 years.
And you did that and did not touch karting, didn't go to karting, weren't around karting.
Didn't do
no
anything.
more magazines, nothing?
I think I went by Azusa kart track because the Atkins had moved their shop to the track. And I think I went by there in 77, maybe 78. And Tony had just won the 200cc Hong Kong Grand Prix.
Wow.
But I wasn't interested because I knew it's a commitment, you know, that at the level that I imagine, it was a commitment. So I was still enjoying, you know, snow skiing. Fast forward, when I went to the track with John Marconi, and I drove his kart, it was funny. It was like a switch went on. I was going down the Adams Straightaway, and there was the local hot shoe, right? Mm-hmm. Some guy was out there that was pretty fast, and he gave me a bumper and pushed me, right? That light switch went on. And it hasn't gone off since.
Wow.
and you know, I tried to chase him down, and he was, you know, I was rusty, was out of shape, didn't know what I was doing, but it got me started. And so what I did is Marconi had asked me, he goes, hey, you going to get into it? No. So 2 days later, I find out where Bill Atkins' shop is, and I think it was at that time in Montebello. I went down, bought a brand new Margay, had a LMR reed valve on there, monster engine. I got all the stuff, right? Came back to the track, and I ran into Tony. And by that time, Tony wasn't racing. So being friends, we hooked up, and that was the beginning of the 80s, you know. And I think it was 81.
81.
Yeah.
So you get back into it in 81, and you don't do the skiing thing anymore. You flip the switch and
yeah, I was already I still snow skied for years afterwards, but I didn't competitively snow ski.
Got it.
What was the deciding factor is Far West had changed the point system over the summer. So as you race in Far West, you build up. You get points for your finishes and stuff. So I worked myself up the ladder. Mm-hmm. And the higher you are on the ladder, the better starting position you get.
Oh, better the conditions for the snow.
Right. So instead of going when you're a D racer, which is beginning, and you have to fight all the ruts, and it's just so hard. Mm-hmm. You know, now I was a B and an A, and so I was getting better starting positions. And so when they changed it, I got frustrated. I thought, I'm done with that. I'm going over here. And so I still snow skied, just on a recreational, and still did vacations and stuff. But the karting bug had locked itself back in, and I was going down with the ship. You know, and it was so much fun. You know,
how different was it in those 7 years? How much change had happened while you were gone?
So even in that time span, let's just say it was 7-8 years, it had changed quite a bit. Now there were no more tubes in the tires. The clutches, Horseman now was a main player in clutches. Yamaha was involved. McCulloughs were gone. The Italian two-cycle engines were still around, getting better. Hartman clutches were gone. Burkos were on their way out. It was mainly a Horseman clutch. So that part, Bridgestone was there. Goodyears were gone. Fiberglass seats were in. The karts had changed. Margay was a good kart. Emick was a good kart. KMP was kind of on the downhill slide from there. And so it had changed quite a bit.
When you got back into it, did you do multiple classes right away? I mean, was it all in? Like, did you practice a little bit, or like, when's the next race? I'm doing it. How'd you get back in?
So with Tony, he kind of structured it, and he said, okay, we're just going to do, I think it was SoCal that I was running at the time. We're going to do SoCal, and it was a novice class back then.
I'm sorry, how old were you?
Oh, I was in my 20s, early 20s.
Early 20s, yeah.
Yeah, I was probably 23, I think, at that time.
So you doing the
so novice
the bricklaying thing at the same time?
Oh yeah,
So this is where they kind of hand in hand.
So I had my truck, right?
There's
from the masonry.
there you go.
Can carry the go-kart. Love you, Gramps, but I'm on my own. You know?
Yeah.
The whole reason why I got into bricklaying in the first place.
there was
Get the truck.
Yeah. So we're doing. So we structured it. First, it was novice. I couldn't run an amateur race, which was white plates, until I won novice. So the first race, I got second, and then the next two I won. So then I moved up into the amateur class. And there was Billy Madden. He was very involved in it. He had been around for a long time. He's accomplished, had ran nationals and all that. He was the benchmark. And so we worked, practice, trained, laps, and worked on him. You know, once I got in the amateur, I think my first race was a third, and then it went second, and then we beat him. So then that was at the club level. So now I was ready to go IKF racing. And so instead of staying at Adams, we went to Oxnard. Instead of staying at Oxnard, we went to Bakersfield. So we started going around to all the different tracks and running the IKF regional. And, I mean, there were just so many tracks.
How many races in a season back then?
Oh, there was at least 10.
Yeah.
10 or 11. And, you know, you'd have
almost a different track every time?
You'd have a couple at Adams. Adams was the track. It was very hard back then. It wasn't the layout that they run now. It had the S's, the snack shack, the bamboo corner, you know, the small Monza, the big Monza. It was a driver's track. And you got to remember the equipment wasn't that good.
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, Emick was probably the best at that time, you know, and actually had seat struts, you know, where others were still kind of fixed. And so the techniques and the driving, it was a lot different. You know, it separated the good drivers from the so-so, where now everybody's got top-of-the-line equipment, and a guy that's a so-so driver can pull off a lap, qualify, all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere, you know. Back then, racing was a lot harder. It was faster pace, you know, green-white checker like we were talking earlier. That was qualifying. That's the way qualifying should be. You know, there was a different setup for that. Then there were 3 10-lap heats, and it was tough. And the races were started at a faster pace back then. I mean, you come off the last corner, and it was...
We're going.
There's no start box. There's a starting line right up there, and there's a crazy starter standing at the edge of the track.
Yeah.
And that's how it was for years and years.
It's kind of like the starts at Indy for the 500.
The guy standing in the middle of the racetrack, yeah.
Not that part as much as they come out of turn 3 or 4, they're already punching it way back there, right? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be rows of 3, but they're all thinned out by turn 4.
But speaking about a crazy person standing in the middle of the track. Jerry Adams.
Yeah.
I had seen that man jump 6 feet before because they would cone it off, and he was a brave soul. And he would stand in the middle of that track, and they'd come down there, and he would flag them. And he'd jump up, and he'd throw that flag, and those cars would go flying by him.
In the middle.
Of
And
the
they're going
middle
on
of
either
Adams.
side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and Troy and those guys, they were little shavers back then. You know? They were just little kids, you know, and it was a lot different. There was a starter from the Northwest, Ernie Fisher, and Ernie used to stand at the edge of the track, and, you know, he would set down the rule in the driver's meeting and all that, and he was real strict. But Ernie had a twitch, and if you weren't paying attention, you didn't see it. But if you were paying attention and you saw that twitch, you knew that was the one
coming.
that green is going.
The tell.
You know, and so you'd line up. If you were not on the front row, you'd kind of stay in formation, and you'd be watching his feet, and you'd be watching his arm. He'd make that move with his foot, move it back. And as soon as that foot went back and you were on the gas and you were out of line, and by that time the green flag was already up, and you'd go by him and his face was just red because you beat him. You know?
I've actually talked to some of the training some of the guys in the Arrive and Drive, or even league stuff indoor back in the day. I'm like, if you're the flagger, know that nobody's going on the green. They're going on whatever moves. If you move your shoulder, if you do, they're gone. They're rolling. So you got to do it in one fluid motion.
Yeah,
so for sure.
There were so many different starters back then. IKF had a regular starter, and he was really good. But racing was so different. You know, everything was IKF from the Mississippi West, you know, and then from the Mississippi East, it was all WKA.
So in those, when you're doing the IKF, the regional stuff in the early '80s, and you're in your early 20s, then. What you're going around and doing? What was the thought? What was the goal? Were you just want to win the championship, or did you have bigger ideas?
It was the same thing: win championships. You know, take that trophy home first. You know, and we used to have a lot of fun. You know, just because the competition was so serious. Mike Manning was my competition, and you know, and Manning. He's tough now, just like he was back then. He's just not in the driving seat. But there were other guys. There were so many guys that were up and coming, current, you know, and you just try to beat them, outlast them, get them to quit, you know, bring the next one in. Mm-hmm. And we just had fun. It was about just racing and bringing the trophy home. And that's what it was. Win championships. To get good enough to go to the IKF Grand Nationals, to get your expert plates, to be on that list, you know, that was the ultimate goal. And when you look back on that at that list in the IKF rule book, and you look who's on that list, you know, it's a who's who. Mm-hmm. And so that was the goal.
IKF Grand Nationals. That was the crowning achievement. That was the thing you wanted. You wanted that Duffy.
You wanted that Duffy. You wanted that mechanics buckle. You know, you wanted the big #1 decal that said Grand National Champion. That's what it was all about. There wasn't the stepping stone like there is now, where kids are here and they're going to win this, and then their parents are going to put them into a F2000 or. You know, and they go up the system. There wasn't that back then. The only time that kids left to go big car racing was if their dad was involved in stock car racing, Kevin Harvick. You know, that was really the only thing.
So it wasn't a step ladder deal. It was like, no, we're kart racing for kart racing.
Yeah. Now, when the Jones boys came in there, the Parnelli Jones' son, PJ and Paige. They were probably, and this was in '88, they were probably the kids that were the beginning of stepping up. You know, Harvick left after the '92 Nationals. Danica Patrick left, I think, after '96, '95, '96. She went to England. Same with Hornish, those guys. You know, everybody that had stepped up, and there's so many more. Alex Barron was able to step up. Bobby Orgel, Patrick Long, Phil Giebler. You know, these are all little kids. They were juniors when I was racing, you know, and then their last couple of years, they were seniors. And there were a lot of talent. Michael Valiente.
Yeah, my neck of the woods.
Yep. And, you know, it was just amazing the people that came in, the ones that were serious, and then they were gone.
Yeah.
A lot of them quit. You know, they had a little bit of success, but they get frustrated because it was still, back in the day, it was still a tuner thing. It was about preparation. And, I mean, it's still preparation now, but the equipment was so much different, and the classes were different.
Well, I was going to say, too, is, you know, you're starting to see the karts change, too. I mean, you have more tunability in them, you know, so I think it comes down to who's figuring it out faster than the other guy.
Yeah, the KA classes is one of those classes where it's coming down to really being able to tune your chassis. Mm-hmm. You know, back then it was about clutch slip, it was about pipe length, you know, engine building. You know, Manning was an engine builder, Pitt's Performance built, Emmix built, Mark Zartarian was big back in the 90s. And I know I'm leaving other guys out too, but there was just Jim Barry, Leading Edge Motorsports. Mm. Now there's a whole section that, you know, from the late 80s to the early 90s, that was the Bakersfield crew. And they were tough, you know. And there was just so much going on. Each year it got a little better. The races got a little better. You'd start to have your one-off promoter who would decide to have a street race. There were some great street races in Redlands. There was races in Laverne, you know, Pismo Beach. You know, these were street races that, you know, people organized. And so the 80s, by 88, I think it was, or maybe 85, was when the invasion of the European go-kart came, where the real invasion, where Tony Kart and CRG and Burrell landed.
In the mid to late 80s.
Mid to late 80s. And that changed everything. The whole game changed.
What was the big thing that they had or that they were doing that the American brands had not done yet? Or what was the big game changer then?
Well, the big game changer was their whole kart, the wheels, everything on their...
Okay.
I mean, it was... They were doing their homework. They were serious about it. Where here it was still kind of a pat on the head kind of karting. They were very serious about it. Those guys over there, that was a feeder system.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
You know? And so when the European karts came over, they did a demo race at the Sands Hotel. I want to say it's 1985, but I'm not sure. And they brought over the Formula K 135s, direct drive. Monsters. Great, you know, open tires, Bridgestone, Dunlop, Vega. And then we had a support class, piston port light. And when you looked at our stuff and then you looked at their stuff, you wanted to take their stuff.
Give me that one over
yeah,
there.
Right.
I want to ride that.
Is that the first time that people started buying the old chassis out from underneath people at the end? Like SuperNats, they'll have the one race old chassis, start buying them up?
You know, yeah, we tried to buy a kart and they wouldn't sell it to us.
Yeah.
You know, and Faye Pearson was real good friends with one of the original owners of IAME. And I want to say his last name's Grana or something like that. We tried to buy that kart, just the chassis. You know, we didn't want the motor. And they wouldn't sell it. But a year later, they're coming over.
All
Right.
over the place. Huh?
So now karting's changing really fast. And all of a sudden the American manufacturers are in a panic. Emmix, Margay's, KMP, because their technology is it's old. It's
Now they're trying to catch up. Yeah.
well, they couldn't catch up.
Start from scratch, throw away the old model and try to figure this thing out.
So at that time, it was 25 millimeter axles, hollow, bearing cassettes, hubs on the front wheels. The front axle stubs were a lot longer, 17 millimeter. Everything's metric. Seat struts, hollow steering shaft. I mean, everything was different. And you would get in it, and the car was, you put your engine, Yamaha, Comet, whatever, you put it on there, and you were fast instantly.
Wow. Just the chassis was starting to work a bit.
Just the chassis. So then there was the era of the 50-inch rule, right? This was their way of trying to corral the go-kart's performance, where you could only go out 50-inch max in the rear. They figured, that's going to even the plane. It didn't change anything because they had different axle material. So, and a shorter axle worked better on the tracks that had the old school tracks with the 180, right?
Right.
So
these tight tracks, the short wheelbase or the tight wheel track was no big deal.
Yeah. So that didn't work. So then they tried to implement the YBN, which makes the blue look like a soft tire.
Take all the grip away.
It's probably what you have on the rental carts here.
Right.
It was just, it took the grip away. Well, that didn't take much. People figured it out, Everybody was still testing and training was starting to really ramp up. So they finally gave up on it. And
by they, you mean IKF?
IKF, local people, the manufacturers, they gave up on it, let the cars go back out to 55. And everything was European. By the early 90s, there was an occasional. Joey Hand was still running Emmix, and
we heard there was a good number of bug carts that were rolling.
Yeah, there were still some bug carts. John Bush was, leading that campaign. There were still Margays and stuff, and they were still competitive. But when it came to the big races, the top results, the what you runs, it was all European carts, whether it was Tony, CRG, or Burrell's. And then in the mid-90s, there were just more different brands of European carts coming through. So it saturated. So it during the 90s, it really evolved. Then the direct drive came. And the direct drive actually came around 89, 88, and it was 100cc, and that was a blast.
What do they call it? Formula A?
Formula A.
Right.
And you could run Reed or a rotary, and they were missiles. 100cc, big carburetor. In the beginning, it was like 17,000, 18,000. By the time I got out of it, they were at 20.
I was going to say, I even remember the ICAs, which was also a direct drive in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Or 2005, 6, 7, 8. They're 20,000.
Yeah, when they switched them to water cooled, they picked up a couple thousand more RPM. And I just rebuilt one that I had from '99, and that was one of my COVID projects in March because karting stopped. Right, what am I going to do?
Yeah,
I'll rebuild this.
Oh, you didn't go skiing?
No, they shut that down too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the '90s were really good. WKA had put on a series from '94 to '96, the Constructors' Cup. And then in '97, or was it '96, Doug Headline wanted to mimic Formula A European style to prepare the drivers to what it's like to go run in Europe. So we had a 7-race series that was just direct drive Formula A. You had to register. You had to qualify all your equipment. You had to do exactly what you would do if you went to a race in Europe. And it was awesome. And everybody was in it. And when I think of all of the drivers, Alex Barron, Bobby Orgel, Phil Giebler, Patrick Long, Michael Valiente, Buddy Rice, the Giacomelli brothers, or the owners of J3, and there were so many more. I should have dug in the archives and brought out an entry list.
Yeah.
Jeremy Drew, Matt Matt Selsky, I think, from back east. There was another guy. Manning had a crew. It's a great thing about Manning. Whenever there's a big race, that guy would come out with an army.
Right.
And
that's actually talking about Manning. That is one of the really fun things that's been racing with Jim Barry and driving for Jim. Is Jim and Michael have this little. It was myself and Jim and Nick DeGraff and Mike, and it's just a fun little back and forth. And
if you come out, he's coming out.
Yeah,
type deal.
Mike will always ask, he's like, "Hey, you running this weekend?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not running." And you could just see his face, like, "Man, damn it!" It's like he wants competition, and he'll bring like you said, the army out to make sure it's him.
It's awesome. He knows how to race, and preparing for races. I raced for Mike for years. And I would get this phone call, and he'd say, "Hey, they're harassing me." Yeah. And he says, "Can you be here tomorrow?" And yeah, I'll be there. And you go there, and you had no idea what you're getting into. And then there they are, the competition, and you jump in, and you were just, you were mean, you were ready to race, and Manning was doing everything. And you'd win. You'd take that trophy home, and you just see Manning grinning. Let's go to the In-N-Out.
Let's go celebrate. Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
And that was the passion. I mean, that man still has that same passion.
Oh, yeah.
He was...
Every session, every practice session, doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's just, even this KA stuff, it was like old times. It was on. And that's what makes karting fun. Is that everybody that's out of control, I'm not the only one, it's such a passion. I'll stay up one more hour to get this ready. Or I'll be like Mike Rollison and drive 2,800 miles for a go-kart race.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's everybody has the same passion.
Yeah.
Racing, doing their best they can to win.
That's what I love about when the Pro Tour is here or when Challenge is here. Just that heightened, you feel it in the paddock, just that heightened level of...
That focus, if you will.
Everybody's on it. This is not, it's club races, we're still trying to win, but you can just feel the vibe.
Intense.
At SuperNats, it's just, it permeates everything.
Oh, yeah. And when you look at that, you're racing against the best. And, hey, sometimes you're the best, and sometimes you're the rest, and sometimes there's just people that work harder at it. They're able to train more, and better prepared equipment, and that's the fun part about it. If I didn't have to work and all I could do was this, even at my age, it'd be on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I because it's so much fun. I know what it takes. I'm around a great group of guys that are just as passionate, and that's what's wonderful about karting. Since I came back, I don't even think about stopping.
Have you been going nonstop since coming back in the 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I came back in 2006. Oh, this is another funny story. So my friend Tony Atkins and Ralph Bush out at Adams Kart Track, they're calling me up, harassing me that I'm just an old hack, whatever.
Hey, so when did you stop?
I stopped in 1997.
Okay. Why did you stop there before we jump to your 2006?
Okay. So after the 96 campaign in Formula A, 97 was all about CIK racing. And they were going to have a race out here at the old Apex Raceway, Sloan, Nevada. And it was the Northern American Championships. And I had done one in 95 at North Carolina at the big speedway. And I finished 9th. Alex Barron finished 10th. And I think Aaron Justice finished. He was on a CRG factory ride, and he finished 6th. So we were starting to make some headway to be able to compete with those guys.
The American drivers.
And, so 97 was all I was going. All the chips were on the table. And we got to Vegas. We were fast, and then I got bit by the politics. And by that time I was burnt, and I stopped.
Yeah.
You know, I was just...
Left a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah. You know, I knew about the politics at that level. Who's going to get this? Who's going to get that? The tires were open. So there would be a Bridgestone truck, a Dunlop truck, and a Vega truck. And there were levels of tires. You know, everybody would start out in the practice, and then at the end of the day, on the first day of practice, you would get a green dot set of tires, or you'd get a red dot set of tires, and you'd go out there on that set of tires, and you were a second faster.
Jeez.
So the game was completely different. And then you'd get 3 engines, and you would start off with your C. You'd run a little bit on the B, but you'd never touch the A. A didn't go on until qualifying. You know, and you didn't have to go out there to see what it's going to do. They tell you A goes on in qualifying, A goes on in qualifying.
That's it, yeah.
So during the sessions, the first day I was in the top 10. Second day I was in the top 3. End of the second day, they came over and said we made a mistake, and we had the wrong engines. And we knew better. We had already had them for 2 days, right? And so we didn't want to give him up. And the guy I was running for, he, you know, hey, yeah, you have to give it back. This is how it works. And so we gave him back. We gave everything back. We set it all in our pit spot, and we drove home.
Oh, no way.
Wow.
Yeah, I was fuming because, you know, as an American driver, being in the top 10, it was big for me. 40 years old, racing against 20-year-old.
Right.
You know, it was big. So if you're going to start changing my program to make me go back down the order, I'm not going to play. You know, so it was, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
You know, because it meant so much for me to race on that level. The first time I went to the World Championships in 1993, I thought I had found the promised land. It was unbelievable. I had never even imagined it would be like that, and it was real. I mean, just when you get to the facility and you see the tents and the teams and the way everything goes, when you go out and practice, that's a race. That's not practice. That's, you know, they're just dialing in pressures and chassis. So that's when I got to that level, that's what I wanted to do. There was nothing else, you know. And so when it came to the States, it was a chance to show what I could do. And then to get bit by the politics was, you know, it just broke my heart.
Yeah.
But that's the way, you know, when I look back at it, that's just the way it was. I should have stayed there. I should have just dealt with but it was just,
overcome those odds.
Yeah.
Go, oh, okay, I'll take your C engine and still kick ass or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
do the best you can.
The next day when I looked at the times, it was there. Everything was a second and a half faster.
Yeah.
So you knew that the real tires were coming out, and the big game. And the guy that ended up getting my engine finished second.
Aye.
So you know, I paid attention to it, but I was just fuming. And
you come back home, and it's basically close up shop. We're not going racing anymore.
That's it.
Yeah.
I was done, and my mechanic, he was heartbroken. Oh, come on, you can get over it and all. I said, no, I'm done with it. You know, and it was probably time to take a break because you figure 1981 to 97, nonstop, all of the changes.
Yeah, and you're changing with it.
Yeah,
Right. You're having
and you're
to figure
evolving
it out.
with it. You know, the kids are coming up, Patrick Long, Giebler, you know, Danica Patrick, all of these kids are coming up, and now they're your competition. Well, you could still beat them, you know, but you got wiped out.
Right.
You know, and it just wasn't fun anymore. And if you can't have fun, you don't want to go out there,
Yeah.
you know, and you're licking your wounds.
Yeah.
You know. So,
And for someone who's got as much passion for it and love for karting, and you know, going back to that little kid with the karting magazine, and you know, it's real.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
real, and to have that kind of thing happen, I could see, as you say, breaking your heart really is kind of the best way of putting it.
It was a heartbreaker, and I mean, Manning called me and said, "Oh, you're not going to quit," and it's like, I wouldn't take his calls. And then 2 years later, Mike calls me up, and they're having an ICA race at Willow. So I called up my old sponsor, Enzo Chiavetti. Hey, can you send me some stuff out? I'll buy it. Just, can I get the real stuff? So he sends me out a Burrell, sends me out a ETAL system, sends me all the stuff, sends me a box of Vegas.
Were you on Burrell up until that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so my last few years from 93 to 97 was all Burrell.
Gotcha.
And from 93 to 89 was CRG. And so I got a car and went out there, and I hadn't been in a kart in 2 years. Did a little practice, didn't have a mechanic, just winging it, We didn't have the Micron or any of that stuff. It was fun. I raced a guy named Joel Miller.
I have not heard that name in a while. And Joel Miller, well, he didn't suck.
No. Joel was just a little kid, 15 or 16.
I was gonna say.
And his dad, Jack, I knew him from, previous racing, and him and I had a battle. And it was so funny is that there were all these little kids out there, and they're looking at this like, who's this old guy, And it's like, oh man, you don't want to piss me off. Yeah, but Joel was the rabbit, and I drove my tail off to stay with them, and and I never touched the car again until this past winter when COVID hit, right? And I rebuilt it, and I put the snipers on the front end, and I laughed for 10 minutes. And I thought, no wonder I couldn't drive this thing. This spindle's going that way, and that spindle's going that way, and they weren't communicating between each other.
Oh, man.
And it was out to lunch.
What a time capsule.
You came
though.
back
Isn't that crazy?
It was.
You came back after 2 years, like, man, I got to pack it up. This is way harder than I remember.
I had fun, but I wasn't ready to come back.
Right.
And then in 2006, my friends were egging me on. So I went and got, instead of coming out to ride their go-karts, and they have Rotaxes, and they were, I forget what chassis they had. I bought a kart from Zartarian with a Leopard on there, and I came out to the track, and I was there like half hour earlier than them, had it all set up on the stand and all that. And they came in, their eyes were huge.
Surprise.
Next weekend, I raced against, they had a WK race, and I finished second.
Where was this at?
At Adams. Yeah, and they ran the old layout, and that's it. Started all over. I got rid of that go-kart and got a CRG, and started working my way back. So 2007, I come back. Karting's changed. There's a new organization called SCUSA. There's this track, Moran, all this different, and it had changed big time.
So it's twice now. You've taken about the same amount of time off or so, and big old changes in between every time. Well, that was almost 10 years though. This one.
Yeah. So it was, So I came back with the knowledge of that previous run, and I figured, okay, 6 months. 6 months. I couldn't even get into fifth. And I'm running tag senior, right? So I'm running with the kids. Jacob Neal, he's the hot shoe. He's out there, and he's doing
on the Intrepid with the leading edge, I think, right? Wasn't
no,
it?
they were CRG.
Was it CRG?
Yeah, it was.
I'm trying to remember going back with the Go Racing mags and whatnot. 'Cause
Gotcha.
I started really reading them a bunch in that time frame.
Yeah, and he would just go out there and he'd lay it down. And it was PCH Racing. His dad had a big semi, CRG. Carlton ran for him in the shifter stuff. And so I was working hard. I mean, I was practicing at Adams, and, I'd go out to Moran. And I wasn't a big fan of Moran because it wasn't, in my opinion, wasn't a pure sprint racing track. Whenever you get into over a minute, Now you're kind of like an enduro stuff. And so I like stuff that's under a minute, attack. This track here, this is attack and be attacked.
Yeah.
This is brutal. That's a sprint track. When you get big, long straightaway, turn, big, that's...
So you're a big fan of Newcastle?
I've never been there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the tracks I've never been to. So I can't say. I hear everybody likes it. I'm a big fan of NOLA, and it's a big track.
Okay.
And it's got an infield that will check your driving.
Gotcha.
But I like Pat's Acres,
Sonoma.
Yeah. Tracks that beat you up. Cal Speed. I was never a big Cal Speed fan, and then I came back out here and started training, and I realized how good it was to work on your craft, because it's so hard. And so I like sprint tracks like that there's no chance to relax. But Pat's, I haven't been to Pat's since they repaved it.
Oh yeah, they just did that last year.
Just did it last year.
You've been on the reconfig that they did several years ago, though, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was there in '95 for a direct drive race, and it was the short track back then.
Oh yeah. That was before they had the extension, and they still had the river turn back then.
Yeah.
Too. And they didn't have all the extra bits. Like the final corner was a lot tougher than it is now.
Yeah. But I've seen it. And Rollison told me even in the rain it's got monster grip.
That's what I heard.
Wow.
PGP's that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just whatever Paul and Zalud and those guys, whatever they decided, the polymers or whatever in the asphalt, we would run rental carts with slicks on it and grip up no problem. Burrell rental carts.
I was going to say, when I did it a few years ago, it wasn't that tough to actually get around the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the problems with racing back in the 80s. And in the 90s, was that they didn't let us race in the rain. For some reason, it was an insurance issue. And in this area here. And so that was always been the Achilles heel, was running in the rain. Until I started running with RPG, going to Pat's, running in the rain at Sonoma, and learning, just to survive.
Yeah.
106 degrees, hot.
No problem.
Not a problem. Raining. Yeah, it was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge. Even running here last year in the rain, it was a challenge. But it's just something different, something to work on.
And this place sucks in the rain.
Yeah, it's got a little too much sheet flow.
Yeah, it's not good at all. We've gone through basically the changes and everything like that throughout all the years and stuff like that in karting. But what we haven't really talked about much is how you've been a little bit successful along the way. Going back to the 80s when you were first going, hey, we're going to try to win championships, we're going to try to win races, etc. What was that first race or that first championship that you got where maybe it started kind of clicking things off from there?
Well, I would say, I'd gone to the Nationals and was totally clueless because you were just kind of taken back.
Is your first IKF Grands?
My first IKF Grands were at Quincy, Illinois, at the TNT track, and 82, 83, 84. And I just wasn't, my racecraft wasn't developed enough to run at that level. And then in 1986, I went to Tri-Cities up in Washington.
Yeah, Richland.
And excuse me, by then, racecraft was coming around, but I didn't qualify very well. I was running 100cc open. Mark Sartarian, a couple Canadians were going at it, and they were just battling. And I was just running third along for the ride, and all of a sudden I watched the two go off the track that way. And I thought, okay, I'll just finish it, and then next heat, they go off the track that way, you know. And
It's not a long course.
No, it's not. It's
Richland's pretty short.
Oh, okay.
37, 38 seconds,
Yeah,
something like that.
it's all right-handers except for a couple of little lefts.
Yeah,
And then the S on the straightaway.
And the S is
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
up there, real narrow. If you hit those curves, you're
Oh,
toast. You know,
There's not a lot of room between the edge of the track and the fence right there. You know,
Yeah.
like it's bad at a
you know,
quickness.
and I went there a few years ago to run a Can-Am race after not being there since '86, and I thought, wow, this is what it was like. You know, I'm in a Masters Rotax now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so I ended up inheriting the Duffy Trophy because those guys kept taking themselves off, and they got disqualified.
Oh wow!
So I ended up winning the class, and I had my first Duffy, and I looked at it, and I kind of felt like I didn't earn it, you know. I really didn't want to go up and get it, you know. But Jimmy Arbuckle and Dick Hansen reminded me that, hey, it's racing. And if you race clean and you don't win, but the two guys in front of you are racing dirty and they win and get disqualified, guess who they're going to give it to? You know, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I sat in the front seat with me all the way back to SoCal, and I looked at it and I thought, one more and I become an IKF expert. That's when the switch went on.
Got
and
it.
Started getting serious. And so the next few years, I think I ran 2 years, and then I raced for Mike Manning for a couple of years. And by that time, everything was European karts, CRG, MMK motors, and we wanted to win it all. And we did. We had Richie Hearns, Kevin Manning, myself, and Jeremy Drew. And we covered all the classes.
Oh wow!
And we were going up against Jim Barry, Leading Edge, and they had Brian Schaefer, Mike Johnson, Jerry Henderson, Terry Beams, and so Ron Charteau.
Some wheel man.
Wow.
Yeah. And out of those guys, Ron Charteau and Brian Schaefer were definitely, they were the big guns. and super nice guys. Brian's is still one of my heroes from karting because he grew up in it, Bakersfield guy, and it was just it was a battle. Then you throw in TNR racing, Tommy Niels, Lee Hatch, Craig LaBrocca was the mechanic, engine builder, and it was brutal.
What classes were you running?
We were running. I would run the heavy classes, Yamaha heavy and Pistonport heavy. Jeremy was running Pistonport light, Yamaha light. Kevin was running the heavy classes. Richie was running the Reed class, and he would run a light class. And this is just before Richie went into big car racing. Did Formula Renault, I think, and then from there went IndyCar racing. But Manning for 2 years had a stout team.
Man.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And then it kind of just.
So you picked up a couple more Duffys, did you?
No.
Oh.
I won some local championships, the region championships, but I didn't do. I was real busy with work. At that period, I was going from doing residential to commercial, so I had to kind of be responsible, and that's just what a killer that was.
Yeah, freaking priorities.
yeah.
Adulting, really effing things up.
Something was wrong there, but I knew I had to go that path.
When did you need this job done? I'm sorry, IKF Grand Nationals.
Yeah.
Nothing like
Yeah.
it for you.
Go-karts. So I missed Iowa, and there was one other national. Oh no, I take that back. I went to Medford, and but I missed Iowa. Medford, I just didn't do that good, and then I didn't go to Iowa, and then I think they had Iowa 2 years in a row, and I just didn't want to go back there. But then it was coming to Adams in '92, and by that time I was back with Tony was turning the wrenches and building the engines, and Steve Lansing was making Lansing racing wheels at that time, and he was making me pipes. And this guy knew how to make a 2-cycle expansion chamber. And I had all kinds of different pipes. I had stuff that would just blow people away. And we would call them baseball bats or the club. And the pipe I used to run on the Yamaha was basically the same pipe that everybody else was running. It just was straight, so it looked like a direct drive pipe. But he had something figured out where we wouldn't have to slip our clutch at 10.8 or anything. We could slip it like 10.5, and it would just pull off the corner. It'd sound like a dead clutch, and it'd just pull. And while they're singing, we would just pull away. So Kevin and I battled against each other, and we had some really good races. Tommy Niels and I battled against each other. Lee Hatch was running different classes, same with Jeremy at that time. So we just worked on Yamaha for, I think it was 91. Then in 92, Steve Landing bought a K71, which would be the KPV motor nowadays. Mm-hmm. And so he built these 2 motors. And this guy's a genius. And he's just very eccentric. He used to be a welder for Hartman Engineering, welding all the enduro tanks. He's just a great machinist. So he built these motors. He's building the pipes. Tony's tuning the chassis, and I'm just driving. Every week at Adams, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, probably 150, 200 laps every day.
Were you even racing anything else, or was it laser focus? We just need to be good at Adams for this championship?
We were still racing. We'd go to Phoenix, and we would still Santa Maria and all that, and we were still racing.
So you still doing all that kind of stuff, but it's all for preparation to...
Yeah, it was being in the seat. But during the week, we were training at Adams. And so by then, my senses in a go-kart were just so spot on. I could come in and I could tell them this. We'd change the air pressure, 1/4 pound, 1/2 pound. Lansing was making different wheels, doing different heat treats, different offsets, and we're having a blast. And then he was making pipes. And we'd have these test pipes where you'd look at the pipe, right? It's inside it, there's a flat washer. And then there's all thread, right? And then there's these 2 nuts. And so we're testing the back pressure of the pipe, and we're moving that washer in and out and seeing where it likes. So we got tired of doing the manual 5-lap thing, come in there. There was no data back then. So then he made one that I could pull a lever with notches.
Oh, cool.
So it was like an adjustable pipe back then, but it had notches, so it clicked.
I love that shit.
Click. So we were figuring out the range going down the straightaway at Adams, coming back to the sandbox, and we were figuring out where that pipe was. The flex was always the same. And then we figured it out. We made a piece of flex. He made a pipe. We put it on. Adios.
Oh, man.
Wow.
And it was just, for me at that time, it was like, wow, this is really what it was. So I ran 6 classes at that Grand National. Yamaha was tough. You better have lead-filled boxing gloves back in those days. And so Yamaha, I got crashed. But the piston port classes, I checked out. I won piston port light, piston port heavy, and then the Super 100 class was a last-minute decision because once I won piston port light, I got my expert plates. I had made it, and so
and you earned, like, you got this.
Yeah, I earned those,
Right.
So, and then when we won piston port heavy, we're like, man, can I run Super 100? Well, we don't have any tires left. We don't have this. So we had one set of Dunlop 6-inch tires, 6-inch rims, and I had a set of magnesium wheels for that CRG, and we put them on, and Joey Odenthal was on top of the time charts all week long, right? And this is probably my favorite story. So we ran the race. He won the first one. I won the second one. And Mike Manning walks by. He looks at Tony and me, goes, "Go up a tooth." So we went up a tooth for the third heat. And you got to remember, these were 3 10-lap heats. So we go up a tooth, track's all rubbered in, and we ended up winning it, right? That third class I won. And I remember after the event, David and Joey's dad, I'm pretty sure it's Keith Odenthal, he walks by me, and he looks at me, and he gives me this look, and he flips me the bird. And I went, and I looked, and I have to say that was the best compliment I ever got from winning.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it was just priceless. It was probably one of my all-time favorite. You know, just, I could still see that finger. It had to be about 2 feet tall. You know, it was like, that was congratulations, I guess.
Man,
And
that's awesome.
So that year, after that, IKF Nationals, and it's funny thing about that 1992 Nationals at Adams, that was Mike Rollison's first Grand National.
Really?
Yeah, his
wow.
family came down, made the trip. Mike said he was 12 years old, running one of the junior classes, and he says, yeah, he goes, I remember that. He says, that helmet you had and all of that and what's going on, and I thought, there were 600 entries there.
Oh my gosh.
Holy crap.
That place was an overstuffed sardine can. I mean, if you can visualize the parking lot, the pits, the lower area.
I don't see how that works.
It was awesome. It was so
Wow.
awesome. And then they had like a festival during the week, and it was hot. It's 106 during the week, you know, just melting anybody that wasn't a SoCal
Yeah.
native, you know, and it was just probably, for me, it was the best Grand Nationals, not just because I won, just because it was in the backyard and it was so big. And that was, for me, the peak of IKF. It was awesome.
Wow.
Big banquet afterwards and all of that. And it was a lot of fun. But that was the year for me. And then I decided from there I was going to go back east and run WKA and run their, I think it was called 100cc International, was the direct drive Formula A. And so we switched gears.
And then you switched over from the CRG just to the Burrell at that point
Well,
with that same package?
Actually, it went CRG. I stopped with the CRG. Then
Why did you make a switch? Because you did all that on a CRG, right? The 92?
I wanted to, when you looked at who was winning in Europe at that time, it was Tony Kart.
Okay.
So I switched and got a Tony Kart and packed it in a box. And Steve Lansing and I flew. We shipped that to Toronto, Canada. And I ran a race at Enzo Chiavetti's track 3S Go-Karts in Sutton, Ontario. And we showed up there with a Tony Kart, Bridgestone tires, and I had Rotax Formula A engines. Well, with these Formula A engines back then, I had different heads. So it was different. They didn't CC them, right? It was pretty much like an open class. So I had different cylinder heads. So we were there a couple of days ahead of time testing. You know, find out which valve worked with this head and leave the pipe and gear alone and just try those two things.
Kind of like the pipe deal. You're just
Exactly.
changing this one.
You know, I'd come in and I was on top of the game at that time. And then Enzo came out that afternoon and says, here, put a set of these Vegas on. And we went like 0.8 quicker than our
wow.
brand new Bridgestones. We went 0.8 quicker. So then we raced the local guys, and I want to say his name was Joey Lowney, but he was good. His dad raced Formula A. He raced Formula A. Well, we went up there and just put it to him, but it got a little rough, and rough was okay for me. You know, and but it wasn't for the officials up there. So I ended
California boys.
It wasn't. You know, it wasn't a good international experience the first time. But they were great. They were great. I was driving too rough, and your kid made a move. I made a counter. I kept going, and he didn't.
At the time, did that it was all good, or is that you looking back on it like?
It was racing.
Yeah.
You know, I knew what he was doing. There was no nose pieces back then. You're going to do that to me? Let me show you how sharp my claws are.
Right.
Yeah. The difference back then was steel bumpers. Now they had side pods by then.
Yeah, the old bread boxes, right?
Yeah. But there were still steel bumpers, and it could get pretty aggressive. Steel bumper days were real aggressive. A lot of guys got hurt, you know, including myself. I got hurt a couple times. You know, a guy puts a wheel on you, hits the brakes. Next thing you know, sky dirt. You know, it was a different game. But each era, the game got more sophisticated. The karts got safer. The rules got better. You know, the officials got smarter. And so, you know, you have to remember that when we go out on the track, it's an insurance thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't think about it, but there's a lot of responsibility being a track owner, a promoter, a club, and all of that. So when you get a bunch of misfits out there and they start beating each other up, it's got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Brian Schaefer quoted me, "Live by the sword, die by the sword." And, you know, it was true. But those times, you evolved from it, karting evolved from it. So when you fast forward and you come back into the early 2000s, all of that stuff's gone. All of that behavior's gone. I mean, there's still guys getting punted, but for the most part, it calmed way down, and the rules were a lot stricter.
When you came back in 2006, you know, after getting egged on a little bit and whatnot, did you'd accomplish these other things as a young man, and were you have a reset button? Was there something else that came around? Because as you're saying, the racing's different. Things have changed again in a big way. What, as you said, Scusa's now around. There's these different things. When you get back into it, what is the new goal? You are the expert from IKF and all these other kind of things, but it's not the same IKF as it was, etc.
Well, the new goal was to try to win a race. Just win a race. You have all of this success during this time of 81 to 97, and now you come back and you're squinting to see the front of the pack, you know, and it was hard. It was hard pill to swallow. And so I knew I had to work at it. And I tried. I mean, even switching the cart, I still struggled because I didn't understand the water cool. I didn't understand the tuning of it, because in my earlier era, it was all 100cc. So now everything's 125. So they're two different approaches. So it was like starting over, knowing that this part of it, you know, and that's preparation. My cars were always prepared, you know, the latest and greatest, I didn't care. But when I got to the track, how can I put it on the track, and how can I get back up to speed? This guy, Phil Giebler over here, I used to wax his butt. Now I can't even get close to him. And so, you know, and Philip's one of North America's best. And so just, I guess, kept plugging away at it. I think that when Manning and I got hooked up and he put me on the Motori, that gave me a stable platform as far as an engine. I was familiar with the Del Ordo. I understood how to tune it. Tony and I spent hours figuring it out. It was a fixed pipe, so it was about carburetor and a gear, and then the chassis stuff. You know, I just was experimenting, changing There were axles now. Back then there was one or two axles. Now there was 4 or 5.
Right.
You know, there were steps as the track changes. You know, you're going these steps, and if you don't go to these steps, the car is going to hit a wall. And so you have to constantly be changing, you know, and not be afraid to change. Now, I was never afraid to change anything, but learning how to drive, remembering not to go too deep, overdoing this and overdoing that. And so it took a long time. My instincts when it came to racing never left me. But getting up to speed, I had to work at that.
You're saying the goal is to win a race. What was the race that you've won? The first one?
So my first race back that I won was a SCUSA Pro Kart Challenge race. And I was running against some guys that aren't around anymore. Eric, there was a guy who ran. His name was Eric. Super nice guy, ran a Rotax. Then there was another guy that ran a Rotax. But I wear them out. I remembered how to wear them out. Just hawk them. Get them to start doing the ratchet net stuff. And
where was that race at? Do you remember?
Right there.
Oh,
nice.
baby.
Yeah, Cal Speed. And here was a funny thing about Cal Speed. When I wasn't racing, I think they had an IKF National here in 2003 or something. 2006.
Yeah, and it was pretty big from what I was told. Not 600 big, but
right.
Pretty big.
So Tony wanted to race the IKF Nationals, and I wasn't involved in karting. But he called me up. He goes, I don't have a chassis. I said, well, how are you going to race? He goes, I don't know. So I called Mark Sartarian. I bought a chassis. I brought it out here. Here you go, dude. Knock yourself out. Leave me alone. It didn't come out here, and I guess he got everything ready, and then they wouldn't let him race because he didn't join in time.
Oh, buddy.
It's so, and I was heartbroken.
Yeah, I was building the cart in the parking lot practically.
Oh, yeah, I know he was, And so him and Ralph they would always egg me on. You lost it all.
Oh,
even
man.
though, it would.
Oh, geez.
I would have these, because we didn't have cell phones, so it wasn't. We had cell phones, but they weren't texts yet, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was the dawn of that period. But there would be the messages, and there wasn't just like 2 or 3 messages. There would be messages. You would, you have to go through all of them because your clients are calling you, and And then you hear, and you're just like, all right, I'm going to fix these guys. I'm just going to go out and get me a cart and go out there and wax their butt. And that was the best thing they ever did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I've had so much fun since I've been back. Everything. I mean, it's still hard. You still have to work at it. It's, the competition's always changing. The new KA program, the tires, and it's hard right now. I mean, it's hard for the tracks, it's hard for the promoters, all the kart shops, everybody that makes a living off of it. It's really hard. So, you got to get out there and you got to support all these guys. Whether it's just coming out and burning laps on bald tires, you get out there, and you drive, and you support. There's you have your organizations, and you can only do what you can do, but pick one and go do it,
Yeah.
And have fun.
Speaking of having fun, and I'm taking a quick gander at my notes here. You're saying, you get that pro kart race under your belt. You've done a good chunk of winning, though, ever since, and some
little bit,
some big events. How do, and just to, throw out some stuff here. You got U.S. Open, Rotax Masters Class Champion. Let's see, 2010, 12, 13, Tag Masters Class Champion. Let's see, Rotax Grand Nationals Masters Champion in 2017. Let's see. Yeah, no, there's 2 Super Nationals Masters in there as well, in 8 and 9. All of these really, really big wins, and we're talking a chunk since that 92 deal. How do these compare to that 92 Grand Nationals? How is the winning now? And you say it's tough, etc. How does that compare to younger you?
It's the same. it's just, it's emotional.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bitchin' list here, my man.
Yeah. I look back at it and, some stout competitors, stout events, what it took, the sacrifices to get there. And that's the thing about racing is there is a large part of it's a sacrifice, whether it's with your family, your work. It takes a lot to be prepared to go battle. And at 63 years old, it still takes a lot. I kind of questioned myself a couple of weeks ago, was the talent withering away? And it wasn't that was withering away. I wasn't working hard enough. To be at the level to beat the guy that's working at it harder than you are, it's a commitment. And there's a saying under our tent that there's always somebody out there working harder. Doesn't matter where you go. And that is the truth. And if you get complacent, you're not going to win. Or it's going to be a struggle to even make the podium.
My dad said something like that when I was younger. He said, no matter how good you get, there's always somebody better, which means you just got to keep getting better. You're never going to be, you may end up being the best of you at this time, but that doesn't mean it's the best.
Yeah,
you can always keep getting better.
It's not going to carry
Never
over.
stop learning.
Yeah, you have to constantly work at it. You have to come out and do your training laps. You have to prepare your go-kart. You have to give up this to do that. Preparation, cleaning the clutch, dismounting tires, changing that axle and put the car back to stock, so on and so forth, paying attention to detail. Am I going to have a steak this Friday? Or am I eating tortillas and beans?
Right.
But I got a new set of tires.
Come on.
So I'll take those tortilla and beans if I get a new set of tires, just see where I'm at.
Right.
Because right now while we're doing this, there's guys in their shops, on the road, in their garages, tuning.
Yeah.
Preparing. Nobody's on the track because it's Monday. Well, at least we think nobody's on the track.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And those years that I won those races, I was prepared. I was going there with one mission. And, I won some really good races. And I've gone to big races and I haven't been prepared. And, it's nobody's fault but myself. Not my team, not my equipment. It was me. But I think I'm a little more relaxed at it now. When I race, I don't have that kill mode like I used to have. I look at it a little bit different. I see a lot of stuff coming before it happens. And that works for you and it works against you. Because you'll see, here's an example. You can go out on the track and there's a little kid that's 20 years younger, and he's the current pro champion, Matt Johnson. Now, he's on kill mode. What can you do? Beat him up. It's hard. And it's hard to accept it, that, you're going to have to work twice as hard as him. Mm-hmm. Maybe have to reach into your old bag of tricks and, see if that'll work. But, I mean, that's what you face when you go out. And it's total preparation, and the preparation comes from the passion, staying up that extra hour to finish doing it right so that it's when you drop it on the track, the only thing they see of you is the back of your helmet.
If all goes well.
If all goes well. And that's where the preparation is.
Right.
Back in the day, we used to take it off the truck, hardly ever touch it, and just do our job. Nowadays, with all the teams, everything going on, it's not that easy, because I know an old guy up in the desert right now that's tuning on something. He's sitting there rubbing his hands, just waiting,
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. So I've been lucky. I've been surrounded by a lot of great people, and my family, my wife, what she puts up with my racing, but she knows it's my passion.
Right.
And now I have 4 grandkids. The youngest one's a grandson, and he's a piece of work.
All right.
Yeah, he's at 6 right now, and he's very competitive on his bicycle. When it comes to his sister and his cousin, he doesn't like to be in the back. Mm-hmm. But he's still a little boy, he's still like at that age, and I'll just let it grow.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're probably not done winning yourself, are you?
No, I still want to race. I got a score to settle with Manning.
Speaking of which, then what's on the docket? What do you got coming up here? What are your thoughts for? Maybe there's not a lot to choose from here at the last part of this year, but you got Rock the Rio, perhaps.
Rock the Rio. Rock the Rio. I'm going to go run the GP 125. And last year I thought I had a winning kart, and first lap mayhem, I got taken out, and so I was disappointed. So I'm going to go back and focus on that class, and then we'll see what happens if something happens with the SuperNats and where it's going to be at.
Yeah, they just announced I think late yesterday that they're not doing anything.
No, it's done.
It's done. Yeah, they're done for this year, which is really a pisser. But I understand.
Yeah, I think that was probably a wise decision this late in the game, and there you go. Okay, so Tom, is going to wait, and that's a smart business move. But that should open up the door to see if somebody can pull something together for the month of November. Back in the day, it used to be the California State Championship.
Heard about that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right after Thanksgiving, let's put something together. Back in the day, they used to have a Calcutta. Get a hat out, throw a few dollar bills in there, line up all those drivers, and bet on your best one, and let's have some fun.
Yeah.
There's always opportunities to throw a late season race and get everybody together one more time before the Christmas holidays and do it again. I think Rock the Reel is going to be pretty good. Kind of hard to gauge exactly what Vegas is going to be like.
Right. I think I know I'm looking to try to do it myself. I'd like to feel better about it before I signed up, which registration actually opened up today, October 5th. So, but yeah.
It's really hard to gauge what's going on with the virus.
Hopefully things start to get a little bit better, and we're looking at 2021. Do you already have ideas or thoughts of what you might do for next year?
2021, well, I'm going to start off on the West Coast and just do the Challenge of the Americas.
And what class or classes might you run as a fellow master?
That's what I'm going to leave to wait till we get to the track.
I guess I'll sign up for both.
I'm probably going to do KA next year because that seems where everybody's leaning to.
Yeah.
And so I think that the 125 is going to go to bed.
God, it seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, it seems like.
It happens when you introduce an engine.
It's the new special thing.
Whenever you introduce something and you already have something that's going on, something's going to give. In the KA program, for your wallet is a better deal. It's just like the Rotax program. It's just, to me, I'm still passionate about Rotax, and I know there's a lot of people listening out there that this and that, and I could have a great argument with you, because at the end of the day, as they say, it all comes down to opening up your wallet. Doesn't matter anything else. But throughout karting, through my experiences, I've seen from the McCullough to the KA and everything in between. Mm-hmm. And you've had to buy it, right? So when you had a format that was really good, that started out as a club motor and then evolved into a national level, international level piece of machinery, that you could get 30, 40 hours of racing out. That's a pretty stout package.
Yeah.
And, you know, SCUSA's frustration, I think karting's frustration with the tag had finally peaked. And so as a promoter, I can understand enough is enough. And it's because some tracks favor this engine, some tracks favor that engine.
Yeah.
You know, and it just was, it was getting difficult. You were losing participants. And so I think his move was a good move for SCUSA. Settle it down. We're going to do it like this. And he's had great racing. And Rotax, it had its program. And it was great racing too. But when you develop stuff for the sake of selling parts and you haven't tested it and then you throw it out there into the masses, most of the karters can't afford that change. Now, that being said, they get mad at the one engine and then they open their wallet and go get the other engine. So it's still kind of, you know, it's where the karter needs to have, it needs to be stable, where you can fire up his go-kart, go ride, not worry about the thing ending up in the trash can, be able to take it out to his local race and race against the same engines. And, you know, stability is good for the whole industry.
For sure. Make it easier on everybody to get out there and go do it.
Yeah, I mean, they tried it with the 4-cycle and the LO, is it LO206?
Right.
Yeah.
That's been a great format, but there's adrenaline junkies out there that just, the 4-cycle doesn't do it.
I'm
for
with
them.
you.
sure,
I'm
yeah.
with you. I mean, when the 206 first came out, you know, I actually got my opportunity to get back in the seat after having many years off with Art and Rod Verlinger with RLV because I just gotten old enough to be a Masters. So I got a chance to go out and play.
How old's that?
35. Yeah. So carry the one. Yeah. And I got a chance to go play again and be, quote, relevant, I felt, you know. But now, you know, after doing it for a couple of years, and then moving on to the KA, I'm like, I don't know that I want to go a hell of a lot slower than a KA.
Right.
I'll still go do a big 206 race. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
but I want to go a little quicker.
Yeah, now the battles that 206 have are awesome.
They're so fun.
Been some of the best racing I've ever done.
Driving them, meh.
Yeah.
Racing them.
Racing them. I mean, there's not one guy that comes off the track without his cheeks so sore and black and blue from grinning from all of those laps.
Yeah.
You know, and they just come in there and they had the best racing. Now, racing is fun, but different guys like different things.
Right.
You know, and there's the shifter guys, Billy Musgrave, who's just out there and laying it down in the shifter, and his experience going that fast and how smooth he is, you know, that's his fix. That's his drug. You know,
Right.
Me, I like the 125. Doesn't matter if it's X30, GP, Rotax. I don't care. I would like to have a twin X30. You know, 4-wheel brakes, 2 carburetors on there. Oh man, that would be a class.
Should have done that for the COVID project.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
You know, but it's not feasible.
Right.
And so I think that the KA is going to get back it's going to get the fields back after what we saw in Buttonwillow.
Wow. 33 entries, I think.
KA
for
senior, it
Brilliant.
was awesome. Even the junior, I watched the juniors on the east side of the track, and there was this group of kids, and they're in the top 5, and I had to applaud them because what graphics.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I have a mission here, and I just so appreciated how hard they were racing. And they stayed on the track for the most part, you know, but they were battling, you know. And then you get into the KA senior, and it was perfect racing. The leaders checked out, and then started dicing, and the hungry pack coming behind, just chomping at it lap by lap, and racers start dicing, or the leaders start dicing, and pretty soon the last 3 laps there's 5 or 6 of them trying to make it through the kink at Button Willow and get on the straightaway, and it was awesome, and I mean, that's what those guys come there to do. That's what us as spectators get to enjoy, and I mean, that was racing, and it just was really, really good. So I think that the KA for the next couple of years is going to be pretty good.
Well, I gotta tell you, we've talked to, you're the 20th person that we've had an opportunity to talk on this podcast, and I gotta tell you, I don't know that there's anybody I've talked with it. You could just feel the passion and the love for the sport, man.
I agree.
Mean, you dig it, you live it, you love it, and I feel like it's the same. I mean, it's being in the sport, nonstop since I got back in early 2003, and this is how I make my living and stuff like that. I can just feel the love that you have for the sport, and I don't want to get all like mushy or any of that kind of crap, but I love it, man. Anybody who exudes the passion for this thing, it's freaking awesome. And not to say that everybody else on the show hasn't, but man, it's something to look at the notes here and the way you talk about it, and the drive, and basically like, what are you doing this weekend? Well, what do you think I'm doing? I'm karting. And what are you doing next weekend? Oh, I'm karting. I'm karting.
I still have, I'll have friends that never been around the karting, other maybe they came out once or twice, and they'll ask, "Are you still driving go-karts?" Yeah. They just shake their heads. And they go, well, you don't understand. Not only is the passion of karting so much fun, but all of the great people that we get to mingle with,
absolutely,
all the different areas, guys that, you see guys that are newbies and they're struggling and they have that look on their face, and you go help them, you give, hey, just do it like this, you'll be fine, go out there and kick their butt, and, you get to pass it on. And, there's just so many people out there that I've met throughout the years all over the place, and we all enjoy the same thing. It's why there's not a support group for karting.
Right. 2 things. One, I think it's so cool how fierce of a competitor you are. You go out, the goals to win, but throughout all the stories and the highs and lows, you came back to wanting to have fun and making sure that it was fun for yourself, And I think the cool part is making sure that you were surrounding yourself with the right people, going from team to team, whatever, but it was the people you enjoyed being around with. Second, I mean, you just said you started on McCullough's, and now you've seen everything from that to the KA nowadays. You think it's kind of funny how it circles back to 100cc, kind of where you had almost the heyday of your karting at, you might say?
Yeah, I was surprised when I first saw the ad for the KA. And it's been, 2 or 3 years now?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And when I first saw it, I thought, that's interesting. And, and we're all involved in the 125. Rock's gaining momentum. And I thought it was interesting that the 100cc was reintroduced. Mm-hmm. And Mike was telling me the other day, Mike Manning, that it has more horsepower than the stock 100cc's that we had back in our day. And I thought, my wheels started turning, and I thought, man, I'd like to cut that fixed pipe off, put a header, put some flex to it, and put a clutch with a little adjustable, see what it really would do.
Right.
But, William, you can't do that. And the reason why you can't do that is because you have to make it stable. And those years when we had the flex and they had it wasn't stable. Somebody knew how to do something better than you did. We had ground clutches. We had 3-spring clutches. We had 4. We had 5. We had 6. It was all over the place, and there was no stability. So the market now is stable. We just need to get the society with this COVID stable so that we can all go back racing, have our proper series, have our proper year-end SKUs of SuperNats, and everybody, flourish from it, win those championships, and pass out the crying towels at the scales, and and just have fun.
Yeah.
And you see it on a lot of competitors right now. What's going to happen? What's going to go on? And I think it's going to get better. I think that we'll get through this COVID stuff. When? I hope soon. I hope that the Rock the Rio event turns out really good, and just so that everybody has a good go-kart race. And it was a great leapfrog to the next big event, and Tom made a business decision, and I think we all need to respect that and honor it, and get ready for 2021.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So, and I really appreciate you guys inviting me for this. It's been a lot of fun, and just talking karting, and it's been a lot of years.
Maybe next year when Tri-C kicks back off, we can see you join that 100cc Masters group.
If I see your name on the entry list, or I find out you're running, man, I'm going to do everything I can to be there all the time.
I need to do a little bit more training in that, but it's definitely on the radar. It's going to be good.
Absolutely.
I think there's going to be more guys coming out. You take this entry list from this race and this entry list, and oh man, let's just put this together. And oh my God,
yeah, right,
exactly, yeah.
It could be awesome.
It's going to be an awesome race because there'll be a lot of talent there, and those kind of races are good for the up and coming drivers that are forced to be in there, and they're forced to understand how the game is played, because it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for veterans. It's going to be tough for everybody.
Absolutely.
But, a couple weeks ago, Carlos and I had a really good battle, and one mistake, and I lost the race. And, but it was so much fun to see the sweat rolling down the back of his neck as I was going, and then rolls reverse, and all of a sudden, oh man, he's right there, and he's just like a great white ready to make an attack, and it was so funny that we're at Sonoma, and that's one of his home tracks, and so he would pass me here and he'd pass me there, and I'd have to laugh and think, oh, all right, I'll counter. Next time I'll do this. And I was squeezing his list down of where he could pass, and but I made one mistake, and that's how pure racing KA is.
Yeah.
The 125, you can make a couple of mistakes because you got the HP to get you out of there, but not KA. One mistake and he gaps you 10, 15 cars, and it's just like, I'll take that crying towel now.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Hey, thanks so much for coming out.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
This is a freaking blast. I say it every time, and I mean it every time. It's a lot of fun doing it, and having awesome guests like you make it all the best.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.